Hello, my name is Dennis, and welcome to my trailer park white trash mobile home kitchen. I really do live in a mobile home, in a trailer park, and this is my kitchen. For this video, I'm going to make one of my favorite dishes, eggplant parmesan. Now, if you're not familiar with eggplant, let me warn you, no one is indifferent to eggplant. You either love it with all the passion of life, or you loathe it as something more revolting than roadkill casserole. I happen to love eggplant. I attended an Italian cooking class, and the Italian chef claimed that everybody loves her eggplant. And I thought, that's odd, because I know people aren't indifferent to eggplant. They either like it or hate it, and there's a relatively even distribution on either sides. We made the eggplant her way. She cut it very thin, coated it with breadcrumbs, fried it till it was almost crisp, and then layered it with a lot of spaghetti sauce and cheese. The predominant flavor was the spaghetti sauce. What was to not like about it? I happen to love eggplant, so I cut my eggplant thick. I don't use a lot of sauce and cheese. I use some, but not a lot. So the predominant flavor is the eggplant. So when I make eggplant parmesan, it tastes like eggplant parmesan because I love eggplant parmesan. So before I get into the ingredients, let me talk to you about how to buy eggplant. When buying eggplant, there are several considerations. You want to buy very fresh eggplant. I happened to buy these 3 this morning. When I went into the grocery store, the produce manager was putting out the fresh produce for the day, so I know I got very fresh eggplant. A couple of things that I look for is, one, look at the tops. The tops should be very green, not turning yellow. Look at the skin. It should be smooth. It should be shiny. The color should be as near to black as it can possibly be and still be a little bit purple. If you can think of midnight blue, then think of midnight violet or midnight purple. That's an indication that it's ripe. And then feel the flesh of the eggplant. And feel for any soft spots. If there's a really mushy soft spot, that's an indication that there's a bruise there, and that brown bruising very quickly permeates the whole eggplant. I like to describe it as feeling the back of your hand. The flesh feels firm under your skin, but if you feel the area of flesh between your first knuckle and your thumb knuckle, that's very soft and mushy. That would be an indication of a bruise in an eggplant. Feel it all over, top to bottom. And then a third consideration is, a sweet Italian lady taught me this from Portchester, New York. She was so sweet. She said, look for eggplants that have an oblong flower button in the bottom rather than a little round one. She said that with this oblong button, it's going to have fewer seeds inside. You're going to have more flesh for a firmer eggplant. I don't know how true that is, but I like it. I also buy smaller eggplants. I avoid the really large ones because those are supposedly more bitter. These will be far less bitter. Another thing about eggplants is don't store them for very long. Buy them again the morning of or the day before. If you think you can store these for a week in the refrigerator, you're going to regret it because they're very perishable. So use them within 24 hours if you can of purchasing them. So that's how to buy eggplant. The ingredients for eggplant parmesan are fairly simple. Besides the eggplant, you want some Parmesan cheese or Romano. I'm using Romano, and for goodness sakes, when you buy grated cheese or when you buy cheese, don't buy the grated stuff that comes in that green cardboard cylindrical container. Buy the fresh cheese in a wedge and then use a shredder or a grater to grate your own cheese. One trick that I learned when buying cheese is look at it and make sure you're buying a center cut edge rather than an end piece on the wheel, because the end piece is going to have that rind on it and you're going to get less cheese. So look for a center cut as far as the wedge of cheese, and then grate your own cheese. You want sauce. I'm using homemade spaghetti sauce. You can use jarred sauce if you want. There's a lot of spaghetti sauce out there that's very good in the jar. Sometimes when I make my own, I even combine jarred sauce with the tomatoes and garlic and onions that I use for making sauce. And then I'm going to be slicing and coating each of my pieces of eggplant. So I'm going to be using some egg and some flour for coating right before I fry it. I like the flour and egg better than using breadcrumbs. So those are the ingredients that I use when making eggplant parmesan. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to do mine kind of thick. Cut my eggplant about 3/8 of an inch thick. I peel those leaf things off. So that's about how thick I want to cut it. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's not a really thin piece. That's a relatively thick piece of eggplant, more than 1/4 of an inch. I think of it as about 3/8 of an inch. Again, because I really want to taste this eggplant. And now as I'm getting down into the seedy portion, what I'm seeing here is very few seeds in there. So this is good. It's a nice dense eggplant. And to irritate all the people in the world who insist on peeling eggplant, there it is, unpeeled. I think this gives nice contrast to the eggplant by leaving the peels on. Okay, I mentioned that I salt these. So I have my salt shaker. And I'm just going to coat these pretty well with salt. And then let these sit in this bowl for about an hour. The salted eggplant has been sitting now for about an hour. So I'm going to start rinsing. I have to rinse all this salt off. Just about done here. This is the last of it. Because I have all this frying to do, this is the reason why I have my blue apron on, which I don't usually wear. I have patted my eggplant somewhat dry with paper towels. And it's a matter of just dipping each one in some flour, which is going to give it a little bit of tooth to hold on to the egg, and then dip it in flour again. I'm going to show you in a minute what it looks like as I'm starting to assemble it in the casserole dish. I want you to see what this looks like as I'm building this. I'm actually going to save some of my better looking, I'm going to save this one. I'm going to save some of my better looking slices for the top. Okay, so there's another layer in there. This is actually the second layer that I've put in there. I like having my sauce in a really large jar like this because it's easy to get a ladle into it. And I put a thin layer of sauce on there. As far as how much sauce and how much cheese to use, it depends upon your audience. If you know someone who really likes eggplant, then don't use a lot of sauce or a lot of cheese. Let the eggplant flavor predominate. But if you don't know your audience and you don't know how they're going to feel about eggplant, use a lot of sauce, a lot of cheese, because nobody complains about something that tastes good with spaghetti sauce. I wanted you to see how I finish this off. As I mentioned, I saved the best pieces for last. I put one in the middle, and then I'm just going to arrange these around the edge like so. And one more over here. And then finish this off with plenty of sauce, kind of just drizzled all over the place rather than spread around like I do when I'm building the layers. A little bit more over here. All right. And then some clumps of cheese. And that's it. I have my oven heating to 350 degrees. I'm going to bake this and check the internal temperature. I'd like this to come up to about 180 to 190 degrees. I want it really hot. So however long that takes at 350 degrees, I'll be checking it periodically with a digital thermometer. And then it will be ready to take from the oven and eat. I want you to see what this looks like steaming from the oven. There it is, my eggplant parmesan. That is beautiful. So as soon as this cools down a little bit so it's cool enough to eat, I'm going to sit down and just stuff myself with eggplant parmesan. It seems like this video wouldn't be complete without the look of rapture on my face as I taste my eggplant parmesan. Oh, it's rich. It has a nice strong flavor of eggplant. No bitterness, no sting. It's smooth and yet it's complex, it's rich. I love eggplant parmesan. If you don't, well, there are other things in life to love, but if you love eggplant, you got to try this eggplant parmesan. It is absolutely delicious. Oh. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit the White Trash Cooking website and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.